I'm John Townsend. We have a special guest today, Ivy Townsend, and we're going to be working on, what are we going to be working on, Ivy?
We're going to make little sugar candies called pastels.
Little sugar candies. Thanks for joining us today. So the recipes we're doing today are probably actually more closely related to medicine, probably medicines of the 16th and 17th century, than they are to the idea of candy, but they turn into candy as time goes on. These are probably the very simplest of the candies. They hardly take any cooking at all. They're so simple to do and they're fun to do. You can do them with kids. It's great, and play around with the flavors. So let me read to you this first one. We'll be doing two different kinds. This particular recipe is from Eliza Smith's cookbook called The Complete Housewife. I think this is about 1734 or so. And you can tell it's actually related to a 17th century recipe. This one says, to make pastilles, take double refined sugar, beaten and sifted as fine as flour, perfume it with musk and ambergris. That's the 17th century part. Then have ready steeped some gum arabic in orange flower water, and with that, make sugar into a stiff paste. Drop into some of it 2 or 3 or 4 drops of oil of mint, oil of cloves, oil of cinnamon, or what oil you like. And then it says, let some only have the perfume. So they're talking about the ambergris there. Then roll them into your hand like little pellets and squeeze them flat with a seal, then dry them in the sun. Actually, very, very simple if we kind of understand some of these. Have you ever heard of ambergris before, Ivy?
No.
So ambergris, you might be familiar with ambergris, which is sort of what happens when a whale gets an upset stomach, and they get rid of, they throw up ambergris, and it ends up floating on the ocean, and sometimes it'll actually wash up on the shore. It's whale vomit or something like that. And they actually used it in the 18th century. They still use it for perfumes, things like that. And this one also mentions the idea of musk. Again, a perfume ingredient. Now, these are 17th and 16th century things. They were really big into that idea of musks and ambergris, and even this, it says orange flower water. All those are perfume type ingredients. Today, we don't expect to have perfumey kind of smells come off of our food. In fact, that kind of makes us think of something like soap when we smell them. So we're actually gonna, well, number one, we're not gonna get ambergris. This stuff costs something like $10,000 a pound. So I doubt you're gonna get any ambergris. Musk isn't so maybe easy to come by. You can get orange flower water. And I don't think I've got any with me today. We're not gonna use those components because we want just a flavor of these. We want a simple one. All we really need here is a little bit of water, and some of these oils, flavorful oils, and then some sugar, and we can turn this into these little pills or little seals. What kind of flavor do you think would be most interesting, Ivy?
I thought that the mint sounded very interesting.
Okay, so a mint, that one's easy. I don't know, I like this one. It says, or what oil you like. What do you think?
Oil of nutmeg.
Yeah, oil of nutmeg. Guess what? I've got another recipe book that does have a recipe for making oil of nutmeg if we really wanted to try that maybe sometime in the future. All we need for this recipe is sugar, water, and our flavor oil. We're gonna start out by adding just a little bit. We need very little, unless you wanna make a giant batch of water here. And so just about, I don't know, a teaspoon of water. Now this oil here, this flavored oil, it's just standard extract. This is mint extract here. We only need 2 or 3 drops of this oil. So make sure not to put in too much or you'll have way too much flavor. Now we're gonna start adding some sugar into it. And you'll be amazed how much sugar this takes. This sugar is actually just granulated sugar that's been powdered a little bit. It's not powdered sugar. We could use powdered sugar. It just takes a little bit longer. Go ahead and dump a whole bunch more in there. Yeah, there we go. Oh, keep going. Keep going. Okay, there we go. And it'll start to turn into a paste. Okay, so I think we're almost there. really we want almost, it seems like, too much sugar and not enough water. When we got a very crumbly mixture, we can see that it's kind of very crumbly. Now what we can do is take this and kind of knead it. So go ahead and grab a little bit of that. We want to kind of knead it together until it turns into a paste. One of the ingredients that we kind of got rid of that might help us with that is gum arabic. Gum arabic can be a little difficult to find. You can order it online. I have tried some with gum arabic, and it does help make a really hard pill. But we can just do this with sugar also. That's why I sort of took out some of the ingredients. And you'll see in our next recipe that we do after this one that one doesn't actually call for any of those kind of ingredients. We could also use as a substitute for that gum arabic a little bit of corn starch. And that also helps stick together. But you can see there, we can make them into a little pill. We can make them into little flat lozenges like that. We have a lot of options. Now what we're going to do, let me get a little tray so that we can dry these out. Now this next recipe is very related. It's from a cookbook 20 years later. This is Hannah Glass and her Complete Confectioner 1765 or so. It's called something completely different, but it's very, very related. This one's really simple. It says to make pepper cake, right? Take 1/4 ounce of whole pepper and 1/2 gill of sack. Mix and boil them together 1/4 hour, then take the pepper out and put in as much double refined sugar as will make it like a paste. Then drop it in what shape you please and on plates and let it dry. So what she's actually doing now, this is called pepper cakes. It's actually little pepper pastilles, the same kind of thing here. Now you can see she's gotten rid of the ambergris. She doesn't have the musk. She doesn't have the gum arabic. She's just relying on the sugar to basically make its own little cake. And the oil, remember that other one had like oil of nutmeg or oil of mint. She's basically making oil of pepper in this. So it turns out to be a real interesting recipe. So all we have here are 3 simple ingredients. We've got our whole peppercorns. Here we can use any kind of basically alcohol. In this case, even the oils that we were looking at earlier, if you look at like mint extract, it's actually got a bunch of alcohol in it. We're gonna cook all of that out because obviously it's gonna boil or simmer for 1/4 hour. But we need to carry those flavors out. So here we can basically use anything. We could use a whiskey or a wine in the case of this one, or even something like rum. They carry their own flavors, and I found that the sack really brings a strong wine flavor in that I thought was too strong. So I'm using here a rum instead. And then we have sugar just to make it up. So now she says put these whole peppercorns in. It doesn't bring enough flavor in. You really got to crack these peppers so that it brings that pepper flavor out. So let me crack these peppers up. So I've got my cracked pepper here. We don't want it to grind it too finely because we wouldn't need to get the pepper back out. So that's going to go into our little cooking vessel. Now we've got our in this case, rum we're going to put in. It's just 1/2 gill, so we only need a couple of ounces. And this gets cooked for 1/4 hour or so. Now, this is the fast way to do it. If you're doing most of these other oils, you'll steep them in this for several days maybe, and then you'll extract that, maybe heat it up at that point to get all those flavors out. But in this one, we're gonna speed this up just like she does in the recipe and just simmer this, kind of almost boil it for 1/4 hour. So here's our mixture after 1/4 hour of simmering, just 1/2 gill, which is 1/4 cup of our alcohol. It's almost all gone and just kind of turns into a sludge when you're done. So you might have to add a little bit of water back in just to get enough liquid to do this. We only need a tiny bit, depending on how big a batch we're gonna make. But now we need to get the pepper, the hard pepper, out of here. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've got my, my strainer here and the bowl we're gonna make our final mix in. So I'm just gonna dump this in, and just a little bit is gonna come out as a liquid. So basically we can just come in here and kind of smoosh it down and get some of that liquid to fall through. Again, we probably won't end up with more than, I don't know, teaspoonful. So this is our speed version, basically, of oil of black pepper. We just have a little bit of liquid here, so we're going to add go ahead and add a little bit of sugar to it. Just put a little bit of handful in there. Okay, so let's see how that mixes in. Let's see how that kind of holds together here. Might need to just kind of sit there and knead that up. These can be pretty powerful. You know, depending on how much you like pepper flavor, these can be kind of powerfully flavored, so they can be rather small and still have a kick.
Whoa.
See, I told you. The next step is to put these out in the sun to dry, or if you want to kind of speed these up and you're at home, you could put them in your oven at the very, very lowest temperature, you know, even under 200 degrees if you can get your oven to turn on like that, and leave them for an hour or two. And though they should get nice and hard, especially after you take them back out and they cool off. So I'm gonna go ahead and set these out to dry, and I'll bring back in some we've already done. Well, there are our finished little candies, and there's a couple different kinds here. We've got the peppermint type that we made first off. These little guys actually have gum arabic in them, so they're a little bit harder. And you can see that some of these we flattened out with a seal. So we used a letter sealing wax seal to flatten them out. So you could put a little design on them if you want to. Some of these are the little pepper candies, and I guess we're gonna have to try these out. Which one are you gonna start off with? You're gonna start off with the pepper one?
Yeah.
Okay. Try one of those. There you go. Let's try the pepper one.
Whoa.
So the pepper ones sneak up on you. You're like, oh, this is sweet and this is sugary, and then it kind of breaks down, and you get a blast of pepper flavor.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps going. So you might want to have something to drink with, you know, some water or something to go along with your pepper flavor mints or pepper flavor candy. I think I'm going to go straight to one of these peppermint style ones, these little guys. And there's a reason why they're small. You know, you don't want giant big candies. They're all sugar anyway, right?
Those are definitely mint.
Yeah, a nice mint flavor. And I mean, obviously, depending on what flavors you might be interested in, you can make these up any particular way. So, I mean, some of these, it will work with just sugar and your flavor. You can add cornstarch, or you can use powdered sugar. That might help a little bit in getting them to form up the right way. If you really want to try gum arabic, that will make them a little bit harder. You can, you know, these ones I used the gum arabic with, they don't break nearly as easily. They still break, but not nearly as easily. And remember, these are related to pills of the 18th century, 17th century. The doctors would have made the same thing. Instead of the flavor, they would have put medicine in there. Yeah. So whatever they thought might be medicine, I'm not sure if it would be good for you or not, but it was medicine nonetheless. Well, there it is. Really, really simple. It's really fun to go back, dig back into the history books, back into 18th century cookbooks, and find out what candy and those kinds of things were really like. And it's a little tricky in some of these. You know, they're not called exactly what we expect them to be called. And they have this very interesting history that the idea whole sugary things actually comes from medicine and turns into candy and things like that in the 18th century. So both of these cookbooks are available on our website, The Complete Housewife and The Complete Confectioner. And I'll make sure to put a link down in the description section. What'd you think, Ivy? Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had
fun.
We had fun. We made a bunch of different flavors and different kinds, experimenting to see how this worked out. And I can't wait to try oil of nutmeg and make my own nutmeg candies. That'll be a lot of fun. I want to thank everyone for all your great support. And if you're interested in this channel and you want to make sure to get notifications of upcoming episodes, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can find out when new episodes come out every week. Thank you so much for all you do. And thanks for coming along as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century.